Good evening, guys. Welcome to Saturday night. Revolutionary Change Pontificating with Pete. Hope you guys are all doing well. Hope you've all had a great week. Obviously, the holiday season, Shabbat Shalom. I mean, that was yesterday, Tersu, but, it's never too late to say Shabbat Shalom. That's going to be the new slogan that everybody's going to be using from now on, apparently. But if you guys are all here, hope you're all having a great start to the holiday season. It did officially begin this weekend. There'll be some work that'll be done next week. But overall, I think most people are kind of in end of the year mode for the next 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, if we're being technical. But we hope you're all doing well and welcome, as I said, to Saturday night. Smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. It's funny. I talk about this with Jen constantly about our channel. The second we hit a high point, the second we do any type of a major run, like a 2,000 person live stream like we did last week, like what happened. Jen, please don't make comments like that when I'm getting started. When you think about the clip that we did regarding Bondi Beach, the second we have any type of a growth spurt, the second we do any type of real numbers on the channel, we get suppressed heavy. And maybe that's just their way of screwing with us constantly, but it's par for the course in terms of what we do. That's how this channel has to constantly punch up. I mean, we punch up in general when it comes to politics. But in this case, our channel is going to continue to fight through the algorithm. And I say that because we're not going to change our style. We are not going to change the topics that we cover. We are not going to change the way that we speak truth to power, which is what we've been doing since day one. That's not going to change now, and it's never going to change as long as we have a channel. That's a good one, Teresa. I like it. As long as we have a channel, and as long as we are doing anything, it is imperative, it is incumbent upon us to understand what this moment is all about. As we grow, and again, we are now approaching it. I haven't checked as of this moment, but we are approaching 102,000 subscribers. So we continue to climb the ladder, if you will. And the more we do that, the more we are going to be subjected to the whims of the system, Google especially. And if that is the case, then we just have to be prepared. We all have to be prepared. We all have a role to play in terms of how we continue to grow and get the message out there. Because if we are going to have some type of a revolutionary moment in this country, it is incumbent upon us that we continue to do so. Now, as we mentioned at the end of last Thursday's show, we are going to be doing a winter solstice on Monday. And we're going to have lots of wonderful guests that are going to be popping in and out over the course of 2 hours. So we hope you guys will tune in. It will be the airing of political grievances, and there will be plenty to air. So we certainly hope that you guys will join us. And of course, lots of wonderful guests that will be coming up over the course of the end of the year and into 2026. But for now, you're stuck with me for the evening. And I thought about a lot of different stories that obviously we're going to cover this evening. Obviously, AmFest is a huge deal, particularly what came out of Ben Shapiro's mouth. And obviously, at this point, knowing how many times I'm going to end up saying his name over the course of the evening, Lord knows it'll be quite too many. So as a result, I think we should just get it out of the way right now. Lil Ben Shapiro is going to get his comeuppance from me and from a lot of other people. So here's looking at you, Ben Shapiro. Waiting for it. Jen's a little slow on the uptake this evening. I guess she may be doing something at the moment. But what it's supposed to be is that every time you say Ben Shapiro's name 3 times, he's supposed to magically appear and break his face in half. I'm hoping that that'll be the case once Jen gets back. But if there is a story that I think is good to kind of kick things off, if there is a voice, there's lots of great voices out there, as we know. We have a lot of great commentators in the arena that are stepping up in a very big way today, that are doing, they're doing very important work, is the way that I would describe it. But if there is somebody who, when I heard him say what he said, I thought he really stepped up in a very fantastic way. That is, of course, Dave Chappelle. Now, there were a lot of different comments that he did make on his latest Netflix special. But there was one commentary that he made in particular that was a twofer. He didn't just go after Bill Maher, he went after Israel as well.
You know, and Bill Maher, the famous comedian, I've known Bill since I was like 18, 19 years old, and I've never said this publicly, but fuck that guy.
Now, there's not a lot of people that have, we'll just say, large platforms that are willing to come right out and make a statement like that. But I think it is imperative that if you're going to talk about the commentators in our media sphere, and particularly ones that are supporters of Israel, full stop, Dave Chappelle said what a lot of people are thinking, as they should. Do not be afraid. You know, again, to me, I think it's just a case of polite society. People want to be in polite society, so by natural inclination, they may not like Bill Maher. They may think he's a horse's ass, but Bill Maher is technically part of the club. And as a result, they don't want to rock the boat. But if there's one thing we've learned about Dave Chappelle over the years, he'll rock the boat full stop. He doesn't give a shit. And that goes for everybody across the political spectrum. I thought the way that he addressed the trans issue was probably one of the best I've ever seen, if not the best I saw, because it really got things to calm down as a result, and it desperately needed to at that point. And in this case, Bill Maher has been getting away with far too much for far too long, using his platform to spew absolute horseshit nonsense regarding the state of Israel, regarding the Palestinian people. And nobody has bothered to use their platform the size of a Dave Chappelle to say, hey, Bill, go fuck yourself. So it's about time somebody finally did it.
I'm so fucking tired of this little smug, cracker-ass commentary. These motherfuckers act like because I did a comedy festival in Saudi Arabia, I somehow betrayed my principles. Well, no, I know I didn't. I know. No. No, come on, everybody, let me do this. And I'm sure, I know, all right, now everybody calm down. No, I'm sure I'm right. First of all, what did they say? They said, well, Saudi Arabia killed a journalist, and rest in peace, Jamal Khashoggi. I'm sorry that he got murdered in such a heinous fashion, but, and no buts, like, you know, period. And also,
he's making a very salient point here, which I think is important. You know, the thing that we have all observed over the course of the past 2 years, I mean, probably more so than ever before. And I say that because now everything is just out in the open. And because it's out in the open, we now get to see the full breadth of exactly how the Zio state thinks in terms of the value of human life. And as we all know, they believe that they are ethnically, culturally, religiously, and socially superior to everybody else. And so as a result, it is not surprising that when it comes to a person's life, when it is taken by the state of Israel, the Zionists make it out to be not such a big deal. And because of that, we are seeing the depths of their inhumanity, of which they have the most. So when he brings up Saudi Arabia, and again, we are not here to celebrate Saudi Arabia. Let's be very clear about this. What we are here to say is that the dehumanization of anybody who is not Israeli is on full display. And no more has that been obvious, and in a way that we never really spoke about it over the past 2 years plus. If there is an unheralded part of this entire situation that we've been living through, it is the murdering of journalists. It's happening every day, pretty much. Well, maybe not every day, but if you were to add it up, probably once every other day is how often a journalist is getting killed by Israel over the course of what's happened. And if you ask me, that's pretty effing bad. And we have an obligation to speak up about that. And somebody like Bill Maher, who, granted, I can't stand him, rarely want to cover him, unless it's absolutely necessary. But when we do it in the context of here's why he's wrong. For example, the last time I ended up covering him was under a circumstance where he was being completely hypocritical about his position on free speech. And so I had the opportunity to juxtapose statements he's making today versus statements he made in the last decade to prove that he was lying. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to be making this statement over the course of this evening, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. If you can prove it, that's what matters. That's what it comes down to. Can you prove it? And what we've been able to prove amongst the shit-lib class led by the likes of Bill Maher is that they do not value human life the same when it is coming to somebody in particular like the state of Israel. And in the case of journalists, everyone was up in arms when Khashoggi was killed. But in the 240 plus journalists that have been killed by Israel, not a word, not even a concern. And I highly doubt that that's going to change anytime soon. Chappelle has a little bit more to say. I think we got frozen here for a second. Hang on, guys. Let's try this again. So I think we're having a slight technical issue here. But basically what he addresses at the end is talking about the fact that you have over 240 journalists coming out of Israel that have been, or that were in Israel, that were in Gaza in particular, that ended up getting murdered. And so as a result, this was no surprise. Now, I heard where, Jen, if you want to try from your end, that's fine. If you want to give it a shot. See, these are the times where having Colin could actually be very beneficial, but Saturday nights, they are in, they are in my computer, as is, should be expected. If you keep talking the way that we do, we're going to end up pissing off a lot of people. So this is just one example of that. But we've got quite a few people that we're going to piss off this evening. So don't kid yourself. We're only warming up. And we're going to address a number of different particular issues here that I think are critical for everyone to understand. And when you think about the importance of speaking truth to power, just remember, there are people that have died. There are people that have died to bring us the truth about what's going on. And not just a few people. Hundreds of journalists have been killed. Now, that obviously pales in comparison to how many Palestinians have been mass murdered. And we know that a lot of them have been. So as I said, it is incumbent upon us to use our platforms as best we can to speak this truth to power, where it's obvious that so few people are willing to do it. Now, whether it's because they feel that there's too much risk involved, and again, that's why I said, in particular, why I thought it was exceptionally important that Dave Chappelle said what he said. Very few people are willing to do that. That's the real crime here, ladies and gentlemen. We're dealing with a situation where far too many people are not speaking truth to power, thinking that this is just going to pass and that eventually we'll be okay. No, it's not acceptable. And it's never going to be. So it is our job to do what is necessary to make sure that we are saying what needs to be said. So I tip my hat to Mr. Chappelle, who touched on a number of other issues over the course of the evening, including the fact that Charlie Kirk is not a martyr, and that we are facing a really important moment here. So if Chappelle is ever compromised, he said, and I quote, Just remember what the safe word is, and that is, I stand with Israel. So that goes for each and every one of you that are here tonight. If for whatever reason I become compromised, just know that I stand with Israel. So you know what to look for. Now, hopefully, that will never happen. And if it did, you know what to catch. That probably, as much as anything, is why we do need to say what we're saying here. Free Palestine is too obvious. Free Palestine is too obvious. We can't go down that road because everybody would know that. But if I said I stand with Israel, I think we could all agree that, knowing me and what I've said over the past, well, not even just 2 years, I mean, obviously for 2 years, if I were to say something along those lines, you would know that something's wrong. So just remember that, just as Chappelle said. Over 550 of you are here already this evening. We're only 20 minutes in. Make sure that you smash that like button. Make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure that you share the stream. One of the things that we've been covering lately, that we're going to keep covering, that we want to remind people of, is what Palestine was like prior to October 7th and prior to 1948. No matter how much the Zios try to whitewash history, no matter how much they try to convince the world, of which they have now failed horrifically, and it's only a question of time, we have an obligation to not let the remnants of Gaza and the rest of Palestine be forgotten. Because right now, we are not in control of their fate. But we can continue bringing attention to what's going on.
Palestine stands at the Mediterranean end of the Fertile Crescent. Since antiquity, its hills, plains, and valleys yielded wheat, olives, grapes, and citrus sought after in markets from Damascus to Alexandria and beyond. Wars came and went, plagues swept through, empires rose and fell, yet the Fellahin, the peasant farmers, endured. Rooted in the soil like the ancient olive trees they tended, their genetic lineage unbroken since the days of Bronze Age Canaan. After the Ottoman Tanzimat reforms, the population across the Levant began to rise rapidly, driven by falling infant mortality and one of the highest birth rates in the world. Palestine's Arab population increased from 350,000 in 1850 to more than 500,000 by 1895.
Now, call me crazy, but we have been told constantly that the desert didn't bloom and Palestine never existed. But it looks like it's existed for quite a while, hasn't it? We continue.
Even as thousands left for the Americas. Around 50,000 emigrated, yet the birth rate was so high that, despite being a net exporter of people, the population still grew rapidly. By 1914, nearly 700,000 Palestinians lived in the land, their numbers rising, their villages expanding, and their emigrant kin planting roots across Latin America. Expanding infrastructure, from new railways linking Haifa and Jaffa, to the booming export economy of citrus, olive oil, soap, and grain, anchored the demographic rise in Palestine. It was not just the population growing rapidly. Agricultural exports were growing at a blistering pace. The crown jewel of Palestinian agricultural export was the Jaffa orange. Mark Twain wrote, "We came finally to the noble grove of orange trees in which the oriental city of Jaffa lies buried." Jaffa oranges for export came from large irrigated groves developed by Arab merchants around Jaffa from the 1840s to 1870s. After 1880, official returns show the scale. About 171,000 cases in 1881, rising to around 1.6 million by 1913, with Jaffa the principal export port.
We are playing this because there has to be a constant reminder that the desert did bloom prior to when Israel did their Nakba in 1948. It was always a lie, and it always will be. And as you can see, Palestine has quite the rich history of a variety of different fruits, vegetables, legumes. They all grew, and they were in demand all over the world.
The London Daily News wrote in 1870, "The oranges of Jaffa are esteemed the finest in the Levant, and the demand from abroad increases with each successive season." Mark Twain wrote in The Innocents Abroad that the valley of Nablus was under high cultivation, and the soil is exceedingly black and fertile. It is well watered, and its affluent vegetation gains effect by contrast with the barren hills that tower on either side. In those green valleys that so impressed Twain, the fellahin cultivated wheat, barley, and lentils, with orchards of figs, grapes, and mulberries climbing the lower slopes. Irrigated plots near the springs yielded vegetables for the town markets. To Twain's untrained Missouri eyes, the limestone hill country, by contrast, looked barren and dry. But the landscape was deceptive. This was olive country. Its ancient trees fed more than 40 olive oil soap factories in Nablus in 1880 and sustained a lucrative export trade. British consular tables compiled by Schultz show that between 1860 and 1880, Jaffa exported an average of about 1.9 million liters of olive oil each year.
Now, isn't that something? I think most people associate olive oil with places like Italy and France and Spain. But it turns out that Palestine was one of the most lucrative places in all the world for olive oil export. Why? Because of the olive trees that grew there. And I believe, I don't want to misspeak, but according to Jen, this is something that the Israelis, use that term loosely, the Israelis chopped down the olive trees. This is one of the ways of erasing Palestinian history. So as you can see, history shows that not only was the desert blooming, but they had commodities that people absolutely wanted and loved. And Israel saw to it to end that.
There was a sharp late-century boom in the olive oil soap trade in Palestine. Between 1876 and 1882, exports through Jaffa rose from just a few hundred tons to nearly 10,000 tons a year, the equivalent of about 4 to 5 million liters of olive oil. By the 1880s, soap, rather than oil, had become the dominant export form of Palestine's olive harvest. In these rocky hills, where outsiders saw desolation, the fellahin built one of Palestine's most productive economies, generating as much agricultural income as the green valleys below. By the 1890s, Gaza barley had become a premium brand in Britain, with some 35,000 tons shipped annually to feed the empire's brewing trade. The ale flowing from British taps was, quite literally, made from the harvest of Gaza.
So how do you like that? Beer. Something that I think most people in this country and in most places around the world really like. They like beer. How do you like the fact that beer comes from Palestine? I'm sure not many people knew that one. I didn't. But this is, again, another lesson in history about what has been erased and what must not allow to be swept into that dustbin of history. Our job, not surprising. This again is just par for the course with us. But as I said, we're not going to change. And that's why we cover this. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. There's a little bit more to cover.
From the 1890s until 1910, this barley trade was worth even more than Jaffa's oranges. Only later did the citrus boom surge ahead. a visiting British missionary described Gaza as a very ocean of wheat. The fields would do credit to British farming.
So there you go. And I see you, Chris. I say that beer comes from Palestine because you need the barley to make the beer. But the importance of the ingredients, what was grown in the Gaza Strip, in the Jezreel Valley, which we covered recently. These are all just prime examples of what happens when you try to create a false history, which is what Israel has done for the past 78 years. Well, it'll be 78 shortly. And so while they can try to rewrite history, it is incumbent upon us to not let them get away with it. And right now, they are getting away with it, but it's not going to last. And I say this because right now we are facing another situation. I had mentioned at the top of the show that we recently had another viral clip that's approaching 100,000 views, which of course is the fact that Jen and I unequivocally believe that what happened at Bondi Beach in Aussie land was a false flag. Now, why do I think it was a false flag? I believe that what happened at Bondi Beach is not all that we're being led to believe for a multitude of different reasons. The first one, of course, is that right out of the gate, Satanyahu Milikowski was the first person to make or issue a statement. And that statement he issued was to the effect that it was a Jewish person that came in and saved the day. But as we know, Ahmed Al-Ahmed, he's not Jewish. In fact, he's surviving and thriving. And around the world, they have raised over $2.5 million for his recovery. There was even a Zio caught on camera thanking him, thanking his Muslim brother for doing as he did. But there's something more sinister going on here when it comes to Bondi Beach. We cannot let this story die, ladies and gentlemen. This is our job. As part of revolutionary change, bringing about that revolutionary change, we are here to address the elephant in the room. That really is what brought our clip to viral prominence and is now causing additional suppression on our channel. And that, of course, is Arsen Ostrovsky. Now, for those of you who don't know who Arsen Ostrovsky is, he is a human rights lawyer. He looks very similar to Stephen Miller. And apparently, I'm only going by what he is saying. He claims that he was at October 7th and he was at Bondi Beach. Now, I don't know about you, but the odds of those two occurrences happening is probably not likely. Probably not. I don't believe a word he says, and I also don't believe this nonsense that he's throwing out there right now. The set crew pick was AI. It looked pretty real to me, but there's no question. Excuse me. There is no question that this is real. And so now he's going on his own propaganda campaign with this. I was shot in the head at Bondi Beach. My prime minister seems indifferent. Yeah, probably because on the one hand, maybe you weren't supposed to survive. Maybe you were supposed to be collateral damage. Maybe that's the reason you were there. Maybe you were told specifically that everything was going to be fine. This is all part of the plan, but just act natural. Well, as it turns out, he probably was meant to go down. Maybe that is the case. And as we can see, Arsen Ostrovsky was millimeters from death. That's what he's claiming. But I don't know, guys. I got to tell you, in the heat of the moment, if you have just been given a gunshot or taken a gunshot and a gunshot to the head, I don't know how you're finding it in yourself to grab your phone and start filming it going live. Doesn't make any sense. How could the person like that have the wherewithal to think to do something like that? If you were shot in the head, now thankfully I've never been shot at or shot in the head. But I will tell you this, if he got shot in the head, you would be so disoriented and so out of sight, out of mind in that moment. No one, probably not even a Marine or a Navy SEAL, would be able to compose themselves in that moment, take out their phone, start filming it and talking about it. I'm sorry, I'm just not buying it. So let's hear what all Zionists like to complain have to say. I was at a hot dog. It was a hot dog that nearly got Arsen Ostrovsky killed. Remember, this is the Sunday Times. For just a moment last Sunday afternoon, the lawyer, 45, you mean to tell me that this guy is 2.5 years older than me? Some people age. When you live in the desert, when you're not from there, remember, Ostrovsky is Ukrainian, living in the desert and living in Australia, apparently. I guess it kind of ages you pretty quickly. Stepped away from his wife and young daughters to queue up for food and a Coke. That's when he heard the crackle of bullets. My first thought was balloons popping. That was a party after all, but the balloons kept going and going. I started to see smoke billowing, people running, chairs falling. I ducked to the closest place I could find. Then Ostrovsky realized his wife, Sarah, and the girls were about 20 meters away on Bondi Beach. I stood up. There was a hail of bullets going in seemingly every direction. He began to move towards his wife and children. Then a bullet glanced off his head. I immediately felt the blood gushing. It was like someone opened a faucet and the amount of blood falling down. I could feel the skin coming off, touching onto the bone. I started screaming, I'm hit, I'm hit, I'm down. At that moment, no one could help him. It felt like a war zone in the heart of Sydney. On the right of me, there was an elderly man lying on top of his wife. She was alive. He took as though he was bleeding out. On the right, someone's body parts were strewn. An elderly man ripped off his shirt to put on my head. As bullets from precision rifles continued to rain death upon Bondi, Ostrovsky took a picture of himself and sent it to his wife. He captioned it with 2 simple words, I love you. I didn't know if those were going to be our last words. Hey, listen, I'm not saying he didn't take some type of an injury, but the whole setup, it doesn't make any sense. It seems absolutely planned out. Again, this is just me. I could be wrong, but I've heard enough of these people cry wolf where I just don't believe them. Yet Ostrovsky lived. The doctor said it was a miracle I survived. A Festivus miracle. It was millimeters between life and death, but I'm still trying to absorb it all. Why was I the lucky one? Why not 10-year-old Matilda or 87-year-old Holocaust survivor Alexander Kleitman? What protected me but not them? I don't have these answers. I never will. Many harrowing pictures have emerged from last weekend's terror attack in Sydney. But that selfie of Ostrovsky, face sheeted with blood, his eyes dazed and afraid, unsure if he would live or die, has become a definitive image. Born in Odessa, now part of Ukraine, and then in the Soviet Union, Ostrovsky's family moved to Sydney when he was young. His family were refuseniks, Jews who had long petitioned Soviet authorities to let them emigrate, but were only allowed to leave in the late 80s. After harshness of Soviet life, Australia was a kind of paradise. Bondi was a beautiful community, etc., etc., etc. Now, of course, you can see this ridiculous tattoo on his arm. It is Palestine, not Israel. A proud supporter of the state of Israel in 2012, Ostrovsky moved to Tel Aviv, where he met his wife. Since October 7th, Ostrovsky has become a prominent face of pro-Israel advocacy. You mean anti-Palestinian genocide, of which he's one of the loudest members of the room, screaming about death to Palestinians, using his experience in human rights law to argue vehemently against allegations of genocide, because of course he would. A few weeks ago, he moved his family back to Australia, where he told his two young daughters, aged 8 and 4, that they were moving to a new country. One asked him if this meant there would be no more boomies, referencing to the Houthi and Hezbollah missiles that have regularly sent Israelis to bomb shelters over the last 2 years. Again, no mention of the genocide, only one side of the argument, of course. I said, no love, no more boomies. This is Australia. And I was wrong. Well, I can continue, but I won't, because we've got something far more important to get to as it relates to the story of Arsen Ostrovsky. Now, as I mentioned, this guy claims to be a human rights lawyer. Well, this man has been raining holy terror on the Palestinian people for quite some time. And I mean quite some time. So I'm going to show you all now exactly what this man has been doing and why I firmly believe that whatever he's selling is a heap of bullshit. Now, do I think it's entirely possible that the prime minister is neglecting this very important person in the Zionist cause? I have no doubt that Netanyahu pisses off a lot of people, including Goebbels like foot soldiers like Arsen Ostrovsky. But here's the holy terror that this man has been raining down upon the Palestinian people for quite some time. So there you have it. If he's willing to stage one spectacle, why would he not stage another one? I mean, after all, he was apparently there on October 7th and then was magically there at Bondi Beach. I wonder what the odds are of being in those two places at the same time. The two most detrimental attacks directly at Jewish people. I'm sorry, but there are no coincidences. Not when it comes to this. So going all the way back to December 10th, 2023, Arsen Ostrovsky was at the forefront of the propaganda campaign against the Palestinian people. This man unequivocally has blood on his hands, and it's not his. Now, if you want to talk about inhumane treatment, of which the Zio state has it in spades, and we all know that, every accusation is a confession when it comes to the Zio state, and Arsen Ostrovsky is no different. Claiming more, as much as anybody, ladies and gentlemen, as much as anybody, Arsen Ostrovsky refers to Palestinians as cockroaches and continues to maintain the lie about the raping and pillaging of women and children. He does that. And yet we have footage, indisputable footage of IOF, as Jen always wants me to refer to them, not the IDF, but the IOF soldiers raping and pillaging women and children. So when you think about the early stages of this genocide and what could have been done differently, Arsen Ostrovsky is no different than Joseph Goebbels. He belongs in The Hague, and he is a war criminal. And yet this bitch is writing articles about how he's not getting enough love from his prime minister. He can't get fucked hard enough. Now, I'm not here to be judge, jury, and executioner of what happens to this man. But I don't feel an ounce of sympathy that by some grace of the spirit above, that he survived a sniper shot to his head. The only people who could be so damn fortunate, right, are mass murdering psychopaths like Arsen Ostrovsky. This man doesn't deserve an ounce of sympathy. He deserves the scorn of the entire world. He is a proxy of mass murder. And the Sunday Times is putting this out there, putting out an article, kissing his ass, making him look like a victim. We know who the real victims are. And just remember, this took place. These people endured all of this. They endured it. This is December of 2023. This is 2 years ago, December 10th, 2023, that this account was put out regarding Arsen Ostrovsky. Think about what could have been done if we had been Johnny on the spot when we needed to be, when so much of the whitewashing had happened, when the Bill Mahers of the world were shielding Israel from the rightful criticism that they were deserving of. But no, we have to remind people of how far we have sunk humanely. I'm not saying that the people here, I'm saying collectively as a society, we have an obligation to not let these stories die. People have short-term memories. They forget very quickly about what we're dealing with. And in the case of Arsen Ostrovsky, he's trying to make himself appear to be a martyr of some kind. The only people in his orbit that I feel bad for are his two children. They didn't ask for this. Nobody asks for this. But they are indoctrinated, I have no doubt. And it will only get worse. And another cycle repeats itself through another generation. But this is why, as Americans, we are obligated to break free of this relationship forever. The images will never be forgotten, and they're still going on. Only now the light shines much more brightly. So I ask, I ask all of you, be agents of this channel and spread the message as far and wide as you can. Do not let the likes of Aaron Ostrovsky get away with what he's been able to get away with. He is just but another minister of propaganda in which he has caused, whether directly or indirectly, the deaths of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of innocent people. He's the criminal. And Bondi Beach is just scratching the surface. So let's keep talking about it. I want to make it disappear? Okay. We're going to make sure that it doesn't. Smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure that you share the stream. And also make sure that you swing on over to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. And we've got a number of key stories to get to for the remainder of the evening. So we certainly hope you'll stick around. But also, got to give a shout out to our good friend Anthony Aguilar, who's now officially a YouTube member on our channel. He also changed his profile picture for you, Jen. So I hope you like it. Jim Talib with the $5. Thank you, as always, for chipping in and helping us grow our channel. Roger Meadows with the $5. Hey, Peter, what's up? Celebrating my 55th today with you and a stomach virus. Well, don't throw it all on me, but happy birthday. And thank you for always being one of our OGs, Roger. You've been with us since the very beginning. We really appreciate you being here. Here's to, I don't know if you want to live another 55 years, but hey, however many you got coming, we'll be celebrating, and hopefully the channel will still exist. Enjoy yourself and feel better. Zaina with the 10 euros. Ireland here. That's how far your reach is. Thanks, your voice. It matters, so we understand true history. I've learned a lot tonight. Well, Zaina, we appreciate you. And there is a pretty good chance that I will be in Ireland on New Year's. So it's looking like a good possibility right now. And that'll be my first time across the Atlantic. Of all the places that I would go to a place where I actually have family from. So kudos to you, my friend, and thank you for being here. Very, very appreciated. And of course, as I said, we don't have a lot of them yet. We're just getting started. Patreon.com/revolutionary change. Again, for as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. So, of course, we all know what's gone down over the past few days. America Fest or AmFest, depending on what your poison is, how you want to describe it. This is an annual event. If I remember correctly, I believe Turning Point USA does 2 annual events. I think they do like a summer get-together, and then they do this end of the year AmFest. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, guys, but I believe that that's how they roll. I believe that that's how Charlie Kirk set things up. So I've been to these types of rallying events where, you know, everybody gets together, you got the pyrotechnics, everybody's having a great time. And I got to say, I hope that there are people that can see through a lot of the brouhaha that goes on. Now, I know a lot of people of note were obviously guests of the event. They were speakers. They shared their thoughts. Obviously, Erika Kirk stuck her foot in her mouth quite a few times. I would also say that some of the commentary was absolutely insane, including that of Steve Bannon, who decided that he was going to rile up the crowd for better or worse, going after Rob Reiner of all people and basically making fun of his death. Hey, Bannon, you know, there's photos out there of you and Mr. Epstein. We're going to get to Jeffrey Epstein with Jen on Monday. We're not going to talk about it tonight. Obviously, there's going to be more to discuss once we get there. And then, of course, there was, you know, Megyn Kelly and Jack Posobiec and a lot of these other people. And like I said, it's a big rally and everybody's excited. And like I said, it's a pep rally. That's what that stuff is. That's what AmFest is all about. It's a pep rally. It's not, and you know, in the political grand scheme of things, and on a much smaller scale, you know, Jen and I would go to events, and we would realize that, yeah, people just kind of like to get together and give each other a big pat on the back and talk about how great they are. And that's the whole thing about these rallying events. Now, of course, when it comes to the Democratic establishment or the Republican establishment, getting together and getting drunk and eating a lot of fancy food, this is one of the hallmarks of why people get so cheered up about politics. But for Jen and I, and me in particular, I cannot stand the pomp and circumstance. I like politics in terms of the conversation. But when it comes to just getting together and blowing off steam, I totally understand that people want to do that. And especially those that work on the campaign trail, that are involved in a lot of the heavy lifting that goes into politics. There is no question. There has to be, downtime for people to unwind and have a good time. So I don't necessarily fret the idea that people want to get together at a place like America Fest and want to do that. I did, for an ever so slight brief moment, contemplate going to Arizona for the event. I'm glad I thought otherwise. It was probably not the best of ideas in terms of how I wanted to spend my time. But as it turns out, a lot of people did show up. Of course, the numbers are being drastically over-exaggerated in terms of how many actually did go. But I would say that it's a safe bet that at least 5,000 to 10,000 probably did show up, maybe even a few more. And, you know, they were there to, like I said, see some old friends, people that they may have seen on the campaign trail, all getting together for various reasons. But what this really comes down to, probably as much as anything, is the importance of understanding why. What is the future of Turning Point USA going to look like? And we know what they're trying to do. They're trying to turn this into an Israel-first organization. And you know what? They probably will. They will succeed in turning it into that. Now, that doesn't mean that the organization is going to have anywhere near the impact that it once did when Charlie was alive. I think we can all agree that that's not happening anymore. But what I do think is imperative is that we do not lose sight of who was the biggest culprit, the elephant in the room of this event. It was Lil Ben Shapiro. Given a grand stage, given the opportunity to spew his bullshit, of which he did plenty, and he had a lot of people that he decided he was going to go after.
Despair, who seek to undermine fundamental principles of conservatism by championing enervation and grievance. These people are frauds, and they are grifters, and they do not deserve your time.
Well, if anybody knows a thing or two about grifting and not deserving your time, it is definitely Lil Ben Shapiro. Like Jen says, he probably has to paste on that goatee, because I'm not sure that kid's ever hit puberty. He still sounds like he's in that 13 to 14 year range where his voice is trying to change, but it hasn't quite changed just yet. He's working on it really hard. Change, voice, change. We're going to get to Erika, guys. Don't worry.
And they are something worse.
Oh, don't do this shit again. All right, let's try it one more time. I'm going to try this one more time because the files are not cooperating as I would like them to this evening. But here's hoping. We need them to cooperate. We'll try this one more time.
And despair, who seek to undermine fundamental principles of conservatism by championing enervation and grievance. These people are frauds, and they are grifters, and they do not deserve your time. And they are something worse than that, a danger to the only movement capable of stopping the left from wrecking the country wholesale. So today, I want to discuss 5 obligations that people who speak to you on matters of importance have to you. I want to speak to you about our duties. Our first duty is truth. We owe you the truth. That means we should not mislead you. It means we shouldn't hide the ball. We shouldn't be deliberately obscure about what we're telling you.
So when do you plan on doing that? I have yet to see where you are not hiding the ball, where you are telling the truth, or you are not an agent of Mossad. Last I checked, when you offered $1 million to TPUSA, I'm sure that came, among other conditions, as more money pours in from pro-Israel causes, you getting a primary speaking slot at AmFest. Am I right, or am I right?
We have an obligation to clarity and to honesty. This means that we actually have to be clear in the language that we use. We should not traffic in generality. We should not say things like, they shot Charlie, without specifying whom we mean by they. The person who allegedly shot Charlie Kirk, and whom all the evidence points at, all of it, is a gay, trans-loving furry.
Okay. So here's how we know that whoever Ben Shapiro is, whoever he represents, whoever he's working on behalf of, not just himself, but certainly foreign interests and interests of our 3-letter alphabet agencies. This case has not even gone to trial. It's in its early stages, preliminary stages. They say that evidence is unequivocal, that it's a trans furry, that the person who will not be named is a patsy. Here's what we do know. A .30-06 bullet did not kill him. And if it did, it would have severed his head. That's been the talking point. It has been insistent that that is the weapon of choice of Tyler Robinson. It has already been debunked by anyone with actual knowledge of high-powered rifles. It's all a lie. So if that's the case, then it is clear that your case has already fallen apart. But if that's not enough, they completely wiped down the crime scene. And that includes cement, paint. Why would you have to do that if you had a case? You don't. What about all those wonderful things that TPUSA has been claiming about the assassination, that Candace Owens has so eloquently pointed out time and again? No matter what you think of Candace, you cannot dispute what she's been talking about because she's so fucking spot on about it. There are so many holes in this story, and yet this man chooses to use this opportunity to declare that the patsy is the person who murdered Charlie Kirk. I would say that I'm surprised by anything that comes out of Ben Shapiro's mouth, but at this point, I'm not surprised by anything anymore.
If we are going to target ideological movements, we should talk about the fact that the radical trans movement treats all those who oppose it as existential threats. Or if we're going to talk about the Democratic Party making room for the radical trans movement and echoing its inflammatory rhetoric, well, we should talk about that. Those are specific problems, and they require specific responses. When people say they shot Charlie, however, they are instead trafficking in vagary that results in increased hatred without proposing any effective response. They are fostering despair and rage, and that makes things worse. We must also be honest about what people say and do, regardless of what that means coalitionally. It is the job of politicians to build coalitions. It's the job of those of us who try to shape public opinion to hold politicians to account and to hold them accountable to our values.
So, of course, we know what that means. That means we have the right to buy politicians with the pro-Israel lobby does, and their values are Israel first policy. This is a traitor to the United States. Mark Levin, Deborah Messing, Noah Tishby, Barry Weiss, Erika Kirk, and I can go on and on. These people do not give a shit about the average person in this country, much less the country as a whole. I say Lil Ben Shapiro because he is a little man and he's a shitbag at the same time, and he has the most grating voice. I got very lucky with my voice, but Benny didn't get lucky with his. Now, how the hell so many people listen to him, I don't know. Just because you talk fast doesn't mean you can think fast, act fast, or are correct. You are neither. You are a useless tool of empire. Your empire is crumbling, and we're going to get to that in a minute.
We must not let fear of audience deter us from telling the truth. We must not let fear of other hosts deter us from telling the truth. So, for example, if Candace Owens decides to spend every day since the murder of Charlie Kirk
if that's how he wants to play it, fine. You want to use your platform as an opportunity to bash Candace Owens because she's asking questions? Candace Owens is right. And as Jen and I have discussed in private, they killed her friend. They killed her friend. And whether Ben had anything to do with it or not, I don't know. But do I think he has knowledge? Yeah, I do. And I also believe that the more you poke at Candace, the harder she's going to come back.
One is so fully off of the mother effing plantation. Truly, Ben Shapiro, fuck you and the midget horse that you rode in on.
And that is how you respond to a shitbag like Lil Ben Shapiro. Just because whether she's pious or not, and I have to say, I'm not a religious person, but that is an absolutely beautiful cross over her shoulder. I love. And I got to be honest. I got to be 1,000% transparent with you guys. And I'm not kidding. If Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens squared off, I'm putting my money on Candace Owens. Just because I know that if she got a hold of his little testicles, she'd rip them straight off, assuming he even has them to begin with. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
And I say that on behalf of the world. I know you're going to get applauded by Konstantin Kisin and Andrew Christ is King Clavin and all of the people, the men who have to keep applauding what you do.
We'll start again in a second. but at least I figured out how to fix the problem once it kicks in. This is what happens when you are a small but mighty channel. We do not have the budget for a high-end production, but we are doing the best we can with what we've got. So you get to hear it one more time.
One is so fully off of the mother effing plantation. Truly, Ben Shapiro, fuck you and the midget horse that you rode in on. And I say that on behalf of the world. I know you're going to get applauded by Konstantin Kisin and Andrew Christ is King Klavan and all of the people, the men who have to keep applauding what you do like you're a 4-year-old to make you feel good. But the rest of the world can't stand you. You're obnoxious. You have absolutely no values that exist outside of the Talmud. You describe yourself as a Talmudic Jew, and I've learned what's in that Talmud, and I encourage other people at home to learn what is in that Talmud so that you know what Ben thinks of you, because he doesn't just hate me, he hates you too.
And she's right. And if there is a clear distinction that everyone should know between the Zionists and the anti-Zionists, as well as the difference between the Zionist Christians and the Zionist Jews. Know the distinction between the Holy Bible and the Schofield Bible, and know the difference between the Torah and the Talmud, because there is a distinct difference. Now, I can't speak to this the way that Jen can. We have invited a couple of noted Christian pastors, including Chuck Baldwin, who are hoping to get on the show to discuss the difference between the Holy Bible and the Schofield Bible. And I think it is also imperative that people understand the difference between the Talmud and the Torah. And of course, Zionists like Lil Ben Shapiro like to cite the Talmud. Okay, if that's the way you want to play it, then trust me when I tell you, if the average person wants to know what's in that book, you don't want them to know, because there are some seriously fucked up things in that book. No question.
White men, he hates all black people, okay? If he's following the rules of the Talmud, I mean, when I say hates, they think that we're animals, that they have a right to own us, that they have a right to make us worship them, that they have a right to lie to us, that they have a right to sue us and take everything that we have, that they have a right to deceive us, that they have a right to treat Charlie the way that he treated Charlie while he was alive, only to then try to defraud the population into thinking that he is somehow a part of his legacy, that he somehow cared about Charlie Kirk and cares to protect the people that are working at Turning Point USA. Goodbye, Ben. Goodbye. The question is, how much more money is Ben Shapiro going to spend to make people think that he's popular?
That is a great question, Candace. And the fact of the matter is, it's probably limitless. And guys, we have officially hit 1,000 live viewers for the evening. If you have yet to smash that like button, please make sure that you do so. Let's get to 1,200 live viewers while we're at it. I believe, and this is me, I believe, as Candace is going to allude, that Shapiro is on his way out. Now, it's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow, because when you have this much money getting pumped up your ass 24/7, like the Ellisons are doing with Barry Weiss over at CBS News, you can make that go for a while. And let's not forget, there's also the factor of the algorithm. If you are on the corporate algorithm, by pure happenstance, you can remain relevant based on numbers. When you're not part of the corporate algorithm, you got to fight, claw, and scratch your way to any type of relevance. Somebody like Ben Shapiro, I mean, you know that guy definitely gets a manicure and a pedicure on a regular. I'm just saying, not against people who want to get primped, but I'm just saying there's no question that when I say that between Candace and little Ben, if they were to get into fisticuffs, I'm taking Candace.
How many more articles is his father going to write under a pen name Hank Berrien of the Daily Wire under the pen name Hank Berrien, as he wrote while Ben was at Breitbart before he turned his back and betrayed them too, because that is his nature. He's one of these belly creatures, sliver on. The question is, how many more weeks and years do we have to keep pretending like Ben Shapiro is relevant?
Hopefully not for much longer. And that is the essence of why that clip is so important. Because Candace, she can't go to a place like AmFest. She can't go to those events anymore. Not just because the people at the top obviously hate her guts, but she wouldn't be safe. So wherever she met with Erika Kirk, it had to have been in an undisclosed location. There's no other way. And what I like about the way that she does this, because as I've been maintaining for a while, ladies and gentlemen, and I still maintain it now, I believe that Candace knows exactly what happened to Charlie. She absolutely unequivocally knows that Israel was involved in his removal. And she is making sure that this story stays relevant for as long as is necessary, that it continues to dismantle the Zionist state within the U.S. Are there times where she's going to miss? Absolutely. I'm not going to entertain the person that she brought on that claims that she saw a congressman and Erika Kirk on the tarmac in Arizona the day before Charlie's killing. Again, she's just going to continue to throw whatever she can out there. But this story's not going to die. And so when I say I'm on Team Candace, what I mean is I'm behind her efforts to do exactly what she's doing right now. So bravo. And don't be afraid to cuss. Because remember, smart people cuss. Trying to be overly pious, like when Erika Kirk said, excuse my language, I said the word hell, only a fake person talks like that. And we know there's a lot of fake there. But I got to tell you guys, and this is a big shout out to not just friend of the show, Phil Turney, but to all of the survivors of the USS Liberty. Now, I believe that this is the clip where Ben was confronted at AmFest about just that.
You cited during your speech truth as the most important tenet of American conservatism. Why, therefore, did you call irrelevant the Israeli attack in 1967 on the USS Liberty, which left dozens of American servicemen dead and hundreds wounded?
You can already tell as soon as he mentioned the USS Liberty that Ben's physical reaction was very uncomfortable. You could see the smirk. You could see the shift in his physical disposition at the podium. On our channel, we have had the pleasure of having Phil Turney as a guest, one of the few surviving members of the USS Liberty. But that's not the only person. We are fortunate enough where we are also going to have another guest. And let me confirm. His name is Mo Schaefer. So we are working on that right now as we speak, on having another guest who happened to survive the USS Liberty. And we are going to continue to make this a central focus until justice is done for our service members on that fateful day in 1967.
So what I actually said is that if we're looking at modern Israeli-American relations, looking at an attack that happened mistakenly by multiple Navy reports, multiple Israeli reports, and all available evidence.
So he's lying through his teeth on that fucking stage right now. And if Phil Turney was there, he would tell him that he's a fucking liar. And how do I know this? Because Phil Turney and I communicate on the regular. I love that man. It's like talking to my late grandfather. And he told me that he was at an event recently at the Heritage Foundation and how Lil Ben Shapiro got up on stage and started spewing his pro-Israel bullshit to that crowd. And it's not going to last. It's not going to last. So the idea that he's up there right off the bat lying about what actually went down on that fateful day in June in 1967. There are people alive who said that they had thrown out distress signals forever, and they knew that Israel was trying to sink the boat. They failed, but they took quite a few soldiers with them. So again, propaganda for the Zionist state. That is his job. And he's not going to get pushback from that audience because Turning Point USA's lifeblood is now dependent on the capital coming in directly from the Israel lobby.
And using that attack in order to undermine today's relations between Israel and America, that's irrelevant. As irrelevant as it would be to cite a piece of evidence from World War II or from 1776 to define America's relations with, for example, Great Britain or Germany today. That does not mean that the attack wasn't horrible for the Americans involved, that it wasn't bloody and terrible. The Israeli government paid reparations to the people who were killed. If you look at the actual military record of what happened on the USS Liberty, it was clearly a mistaken and tragic attack.
Once again, that is a lie. It was not a mistake. It was not a false attack. It was a direct attack, and they were going to blame Egypt for it. Why? When did this happen, ladies and gentlemen? It happened in June of 1967. What happened 2 years prior? The Gulf of Tonkin incident, of which we now know today was a false flag, perpetrated by our people, possibly Israel, for the purpose of going to war or expanding the war in Southeast Asia. They needed a reason to rally the masses in the country. Well, you know what? As Jen and I say often, dead men tell no tales. And if the USS Liberty was sunk that day, the Zionist state's narrative in the midst of the 6-day war would have won out. The Greater Israel Project would have expanded then. But to the survivors, they refused to let that happen. Bless Phil Turney, Mo Schaefer, and the rest of those boys who are still alive and kicking today. And we will use our platform to continue to speak truth to power, to bring justice once and for all.
The people who frequently cite the USS Liberty, however, are not talking about the specifics of the USS Liberty. I suspect that the vast majority of people who bring this up are doing so in order to suggest that Israel deliberately attacked an American ship because Israel deliberately wants to harm America.
Yes, they do. And you know it. With that shit-eating grin on your face. Ah, what the hell, Ben Shapiro? You ought to give me a smack.
Oh, right. I'll teach you.
When you lie like that, that's the first thing that I see. Is how can we possibly give him a smack across the mouth that will take the taste out of it? Maybe he enjoys it. Who the hell knows?
Connected generally with a larger point. I wonder if that's your point.
If the truth matters, then the Israeli government must be held accountable for that attack. The American flag was flying on that ship. You do not mistake an American ship for a foreign one when our flag is flying.
So, and we can spend the rest of the time talking about the specifics of the U.S. Liberty attack, or you can actually go look at the naval investigations that were done, multiple naval.
So right away, he immediately goes back to the State Department saying, hey, we have eyewitnesses, we have survivors of the attack from the USS Liberty that say exactly what happened that day. Well, listen, you know what you can do? You can go and look at the reports that were listed, and that is exactly what happened that day. So I don't really care what the surviving members of the USS Liberty have to say. I care about what the State Department review of the actual day has to say. Am I right? Is that what I had to say? Okay. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's Ben Shapiro for you.
Investigations that were done. The reality is that people were flying Mirage planes for the Israeli military at the time. The USS Liberty was sailing in an area where it had essentially gone off-grid. The Israeli military mistook it for an Egyptian ship. They thought it was shelling Al Arish, which happened not to be true. In the initial attack, the American flag was knocked down, and then the attack went on for about 90 minutes. And then as soon, you can hear this, by the way, on the tapes of the Israeli pilots talking to each other, as soon as they realize that it's an American ship, they call off the attack, they speed a ship to try and help the USS Liberty. There have been multiple unfortunate friendly fire incidents between Allied forces, including, for example, in the Gulf War, where U.S. forces were responsible for killing about 9 British troops during the Gulf War. It's an unfortunate reality of war, but you're not answering my question, which is, what is your broader agenda in asking the question? Because I suspect that your question is not limited to your specific ire over an incident that happened in 1967.
The whole point, all of our points, is that we know that Israel has basically been behind just about every foreign conflict, war that we have been involved in since World War II. In one way, shape, or another, they have played a role. And we do not want anything to do with them anymore. Your entire existence is predicated on protecting the Israel-US-Zio relationship. That's what you're paid to do. That's what the Daily Wire is funded to do. That's why you have a relationship with the Prime Minister, Netanyahu Milikowski, and the President, who you have hated forever, but because he's now Israel's bitch, thanks to Miriam Adelson, you don't love him. You just love what he does for Israel, like Mark Levin. Same thing. So again, a liar and a scumbag.
I think we should question any foreign country's relationship with our government.
That's totally fine, but I'm just wondering why you
serve American interests.
Again, I'm perfectly fine with questioning any country's relationship with the United States.
Except Israel.
But again, I'm wondering what your motivation is in bringing up a 6-decade-old attack.
All he does is keep sticking his foot in his tiny little bitch ass mouth. I totally don't understand why you feel the need to bring up something that happened 6 decades ago. Why is that so important? Maybe because there are survivors that are still being persecuted for that event for surviving. The fact that there has never been a formal investigation done. It is the only maritime attack in the history of this country in which we did not retaliate, in which we did not bring formal charges, of which there has been no justice, nowhere, never, ever. And you stand in the way of it. You are an anti-American scumbag of the worst kind. And if I ever saw you, I'd slap the fucking taste out of your stupid grinning mouth. I fucking hate this guy.
As though it is the #1 issue in assessing the relationship between Israel and the United States today.
Well, many problems persist to this day, but it's interesting that you say 6-decade-old incident when there are many people in this audience who were alive for that attack, as if this is something that's irrelevant.
Well,
that doesn't
no, it's just not particularly relevant to assessing the relationship between the United States and Israel today.
Yes, it is. It's... This is about as relevant as anything You know why? This comes full circle to what I said at the top of the show, ladies and gentlemen. It's not what you know. It's what you can prove. You know what we can prove? Israel attacked the United States. They shelled the USS Liberty into oblivion, killing 33 service members, injuring about 125, and tried to start a regional war in the Middle East in 1967 to facilitate the Greater Israel Project, of which they have still been trying for over 60 years to complete. There is nothing to argue here. And the only reason Shapiro is saying what he's saying is because he's a paid agent. There's no other reason. And the way that he denigrates the memories of soldiers fallen, you know, this is one of the things that has always been at the heart of so much of why people hate this country. We are so ready, willing, and able to say we support the troops as long as we can get them into service. But then when they're out of the service, or they've been hurt, or they've been affected, forget them, fuck them. They're just peons, peasants, little people that we could, pluck out of obscurity from bumbleweeds, Indiana, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma. Who cares? They're a dime a dozen. Throw them out there. We'll get more. People like Ben Shapiro are very important because he speaks fast. He thinks he's a sharp son of a bitch, but he's not. His grift is so easy to see through. I don't know how everybody doesn't see it. And I hope that if this clip takes off, that enough people will continue to see it. All he has is money. All he has is government power. He has no real ideology. He just talks in circles. And the second somebody surprises him with a confrontation like this, not only does he not know what to say, but the second this young man decides to share his thoughts, Ben does what he always does, and he talks over him. Shocker.
In the same way that in 1967, there are a wide variety of countries with which the United States had different relations. Okay, it's clear you're not going to actually answer the question, so I'm happy to move to this one.
You know what? We're all happy to answer it. And this young man was more than happy to answer it. And as you could see, just watch his disposition.
Different relations. Okay, it's clear you're not going to actually answer the question, so I'm happy to move.
You're owned, Benny boy. You're owned. You didn't win. You lost. Full stop. I believe this young man's name is, it's like Cam Huddy or something like that. I'll get it right when we put it in the description, but shout out to this young man for doing what I would have done if I got to that podium. I don't know what I would have addressed if it would have been the USS Liberty, but if I was given a list of issues to address in Ben Shapiro's direction, that's the one I probably would have picked. And the difference is I wouldn't have been as nice. Oh, absolutely, I would have him on the show, 100%. So, just because you talk fast, just because you think fast, doesn't mean you are fast. And you better hope you can run fast. Because someone's going to get a hold of you one day, and they're not going to let go. So get ready. Ben Shapiro is not only a shameless grifter, he's as anti-American as anyone with a platform of his size. And there are a lot of others out there too. I bring this up because, as we know, there was one other person who made a speech that really said what needed to be said. Turning Point USA was going to be used as a platform for anyone worth their salt. That seems like quite the contrast to what little Ben Shapiro had to say. I don't think anybody should be surprised that Tucker Carlson is getting this issue right. Tucker has surprised a lot of us. But as I've said, Tucker is somebody who listen, I've followed Tucker Carlson a lot longer than most people. I remember Tucker Carlson in the mid-90s with the bow tie when he was on Crossfire. Yeah, he's an aristocrat. He's kind of a dork in a good way. But I genuinely believe that Tucker wants what's best for the country. I do believe that. And his opportunity to use the platform he has now has at a time or two been used to actually make a real difference in our lives. I remember back in 2017 when they were urging Trump to rain hell over Damascus. And he told him on his show on Fox News not to do it. Don't bomb Syria. And he listened. And then everybody who was claiming that he was the president, he was presidential, like Fareed Zakaria was out there celebrating, or Van Jones was celebrating. Oh, he's so presidential now. Well, the second he decided not to start war in Syria because of Tucker's words, they went right back to saying he was a Russian agent overnight. That's how fast it happens. And now, as Beatrice is saying, yeah, they're telling him to bomb Venezuela. But who's going to stop him? Tucker Carlson did say something the other night to the effect of, this is not going to end well if you do it. And so when Donald got in front of that big audience and was just talking about how really incredible this economy really is right now, well, he had an opportunity to say, now we're going to go to war with Venezuela, and he didn't do it. So, like I said, kudos to Tucker, credit where it's due, and saying unequivocally that AIPAC or any Israel lobbying group should have to register under FARA. I mean, it shouldn't be a monumental declaration. This should just be common sense because it's what the law says. But as we know, the laws don't apply to Israel in this country until they do. And the second they do, that's the end. It's over. Which is why they have to push as hard as they're pushing. Which is why I give Tucker a lot of credit for going into the lion's den. But as I've said before, as much as I think Candace is probably protected, she's not protected the way Tucker is. Tucker is intelligence. I have no doubt that he is. But not all intelligence is the same. Let's be clear about that. Now, keep in mind, Tucker followed Shapiro in terms of the speaking lineup. So that's also a direct shot at Lil Ben Shapiro. And Tucker...
You're better than me, Paul. You think you're hanging here all day, you're higher than me, you're better than me? Yeah, well, I don't miss you. You're not. I'm a father. I can think that you are not better than me at all. Yeah, I'll teach you.
And I also would take Tucker in a fight against Lil Ben as well. Just so we're clear. If I had to pick. Just like I would pick Candace in a scrap with Lil Ben, I would pick Tucker as well. And that's how you know somebody is America first. I think it's safe to say that Tucker Carlson is America first. You caught them with their hand in the cookie jar, and they don't know what to do. That's why the stories that we cover will always have teeth. Our stories are meant to get everyone to think. That's the goal. And what we're thinking now is how do we continue to build our coalition? And by the way, since we're at over 11, almost at 1,150 live viewers, guys, if you haven't subscribed on Rumble, because remember, they are going to continue to suppress this channel. It's going to happen. So we would implore you all, if you would be so kind, to make sure that you subscribe on Rumble, and it is revolutionary change. No, nothing complicated there. So if you can, very much appreciated. I think Tucker is just doing what his platform allows him to do. Sometimes you need traitors to your class. George Washington was a traitor to his class. They could have made him a king. He had every reason to do it. He didn't take it. Teddy Roosevelt was a traitor to his class. He was the bull moose. He promoted the square deal, and he did lots of wonderful things that we still recognize today. Maybe most importantly of all, the protection of our national parks. FDR was a traitor to his class. Social Security. JFK was a traitor to his class. He exposed the military-industrial complex for all it's worth. And he prevented World War III via the Cuban Missile Crisis. Greatness comes in all different shapes and sizes. And it doesn't have to be by the presidency. It can be by somebody who has the equivalence of that impact. Maybe not necessarily in the Oval Office, but somebody who has a platform that can speak this truth to power. And Tucker Carlson does it admirably, regardless of whether you agree with him politically on all issues. But we're not supposed to agree on every issue. In that case, you're in an echo chamber. Populist left and populist right politics. And I noticed that, can somebody confirm when Candace Owens' birthday is? Because both Jen and I are Tauruses, so I am curious as to what her birthday is. A big shout out where it's due. Because, there you go. And what's Tucker's birthday? Us Tauruses, let me tell you, we speak truth to power. We're stubborn, we're independent, we're driven people. So it's easy to see why Candace and Tucker are two people that resonate with me in particular. Okay, so she's a late April baby, April 29, a week before mine. I'm May 6th and Jen is May 14th. Yep, shout out to the Tauruses out there. So yeah, Tucker, thank you for using your platform for good. The complete opposite of what Lil Ben used his. And finally, we come to Erika Kirk. Now, there's obviously a lot of stories going on right now. And it's becoming more and more obvious that not only was she a honeypot situation with Charlie, she also has a very unique history. She apparently is connected to the Rothstein crime family. Yes, Arnold Rothstein, the guy who rigged the World Series back in 1919. Some old habits die hard. Those fortunes don't just get confiscated by the government, get passed down, gets built up over time. There's a lot of different things that are of considerable skepticism right now. There's the fact that Erika Kirk and remember, she is the head of Turning Point USA right now. And one of the people that she has brought in as one of the top executives, I suppose you would call him, is this guy, Cabot Phillips. Now, why would the story of Cabot Phillips have any real relevance? Because again, person moves on with their life. They're not just going to sit around. I'm not here to tell anybody how they should live, but I do think that there are reasons to question whether or not somebody in question is doing something that is highly questionable. Do I think it's possible that of all the people that Erika Kirk has in her orbit, it could clearly be somebody that maybe she had some type of a relationship with? Yeah, it's very possible. And as I said, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. What can we prove? Can we prove unequivocally that there is something going on between Erika Kirk and this man, Cabot Phillips, who has been hired by Turning Point USA as one of their top executives? Apparently, because something's not adding up. I don't know what to make of this. I don't know what you guys think. What I know is that this doesn't look good at all. So let's start again so you all understand. There's been videos coming out about Erika. Now, of course, was on a dating show back in 2018, I think, or 2019, when she was living in New York. Apparently, this guy, Cabot Phillips, is somebody that she dated prior to Charlie Kirk. Now, you can't see this in the picture, but this is Cabot Phillips, and this certainly is Erika Kirk. Now, you can clearly see that this is identified as her maiden name, and this photograph was taken prior to Charlie's assassination, or excuse me, prior to them even meeting. So, if that's true, and again, she's allowed to have a private life. As far as I'm concerned, if she's had 50 boyfriends, 50 lovers, that's her fucking business. It's nobody else's. But in the end, if what we're seeing is true, that she had a relationship with this man, and then was basically backed up at Turning Point USA by either suggesting this guy as an employee. Well, guess what? Apparently, as you can see here, he's the senior editor at the Daily Wire. Why don't you go and look at some of the stuff that he puts on social media, especially about Israel, Palestine? When you're the senior editor at the Daily Wire, you're doing every little nook and cranny coverage on behalf of Lil Ben and the rest of the pro-Zionist brigade at the Daily Wire to make sure that everything is as pro-Israel as it can possibly be. And then you bring him in for AmFest over the weekend? That's not enough. It's a little bit more. This is from September of 2017. Yes, I beat Cabot one-on-one, not sick of winning. So you're telling me that a person who clearly had something going on with Erika was also chummy with the person that would eventually become Erika's husband? This is way before the two of them met. So something's not adding up here. And that's the beautiful thing about the internet. It's forever. No matter how much you try to scrub it, it can be found. And in this case, It's been found. Just discovered that Obama is one of those dads who brings an iPad on vacation to take pics of the family, and it's the greatest thing ever. Okay, so who cares if he's an operative and he's really a Democrat? That type of stuff doesn't mean jack squat as far as I'm concerned. And then, of course, stop by Jesus's tomb. He is risen, blah, 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 blah. What I see here is yet another example of an organization that is not on the level, and the lady in charge is some type of a honeypot and is clearly connected to very powerful people, whether it's looking into her background of her family. That's a big one. But I will tell you, the most disturbing piece of evidence, because remember, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. What can we prove? Erika Kirk is banned from Romania. Why is that?
We all have angels in our lives, and these are my little angels from Antonio Placement Center in Constanța, Romania. Our goal with the Romanian angels.
Here we go again. So one more time, guys. Hang tight. Because like I said, production this evening's been a little tricky. But I'm savvy and I can figure these things out.
We all have angels in our lives, and these are my little angels from Antonio Placement Center in Constanța, Romania. Our goal with the Romanian Angels Project was to show these children the true American heart during the holiday season. And what better way to do that than having our United States military personally deliver the gifts?
Yeah, can you tell us? Thank you.
Yes, I can tell you. First of all, I want to say that Erika was also a victim because she was pushed in pageant without very, very young, and she just win right away. And then she worked for Trump, and Trump.
I mean, you got to be kidding me. All the signs are there. Not just that it's a honeypot type situation, but that it was deeply encouraged. And look, she's an attractive woman. And for somebody like Charlie Kirk, it's like hitting the lottery. So it's easy to see why he became enamored with this lady. Is she just a helpless victim? I don't think so. I think she's a willing participant. Now, do I think she's calling the shots? No. But she's definitely along for the ride.
Introduced after the Jerusalem, introduced to Kirk to work for Kirk. She just was a honeypot for Charlie Kirk, and then Trump pushed her to work for Charlie Kirk. In 2012, Erika was 23 years old, and she is already 500 million on her value, and she has several fashion company and other companies. And then she went in Romania with the military. I have the documentation. I'm trying to send it to you. And she works with the government, the military government, to.
And why is she working with the military government? Because clearly the activities of her parents leads one to believe that she was part of the family business. Again, arms dealings with the Zios. Oh, yeah. A lot of money there. It's a small club, and you're not invited. The problem is that it is our problem. And these innocent children are being trafficked everywhere, which is why we will address the Epstein story on Monday. We're not going to have a lot to cover in terms of stories because it's solstice, but we are going to have to talk about it. The Trump administration, not a surprise, redacted a significant amount of the information that was being released.
The several very poor city in Romania where they tried to adopt and they did kidnap very young children because they are a lot of family, like they have 7, 8, 9 kids. They were not able to feed the kids, so they offered them some money, and the parents think that, okay, that kid is going to be adopted in another country and it's going to have a great future. So they just lied to them, and the kids, they were taken away from them without proper documentation, proper paperwork, because they work with different prosecution and child support, whatever agency they have at that time, and they were paid. So they steal like 86,000 kids from Romania, and they send it to UK, Israel, and I don't know if other countries all over the world. They were and nobody knows where those kids, they end up.
No, they don't know where they end up. They don't know what happens to them. And this is, again, the sin of sins. We are supposed to protect children. This is supposed to be more than anything else. And this is one of the reasons why socially I lean conservative on a number of issues. Because I do think that the innocence of children should be protected. We are way too overly exposed today. It's kind of like what it's like for people that grow up in good communities versus not so good communities. It's how women in particular become overly sexualized when they're young in places where they don't have a good family structure or a good community. And today, it doesn't matter what community you're raised in. You have access to the worst of the worst content on the internet. OnlyFans is a prime example of that. Now, one can say that because of the breaking of the economic system and the political system that we're living in today, that it's a tool of last resort. Now, again, I have no problem with people who want to do sex work. But there is something to be said for taking away the innocence of children. And that's just within the confines of what we can control. No child ever asked to be trafficked. These innocent people that are put in these horrific situations. And yes, there are certain instances where the parents create the environment that a child becomes trafficked in. And that doesn't get talked about enough. Certain instances where parents are having 8 children. Are you nuts? I don't know how people have more than 2, but that's my opinion. And I don't have any kids. But in the end, we have an obligation to address this issue that for whatever reason, it seems to be a third rail for a lot of people. But the fact that Erika Kirk is involved in this in a very profound way and has been, this is just one subsidiary component to the whole Epstein saga. Erika Kirk may not have been working for Jeffrey Epstein, but make no mistake, the networks intercept. In this level, this high up the chain, oh, you better believe they do.
And I guess up in 2018, the government, they was different president, they kind of figured out something was going on and they start investigating. But only few people went to jail, the very low people, the people on the low level, not the high rank things, because they get paid off. So Erika left. But actually the angel that they call angel something, it still continues still today. They still smuggle kids from Romania because unfortunately in a village in our country, people live very, very poor. They have no electricity, no water, no food. They have kids. They interview, did you have a pizza? And she said, I don't know what pizza it is. I only eat potato in the morning and potato at night. So the people are really starving there in my country, in the poor villages. So they take advantage of that and they steal the kids from the parents. And the parents, they think they're going to give her a good future for the kids. And also they did the same thing with orphanage. They work with the government, with the military government, and they make false paperwork, and they just took it out of the country illegally. So it was a big scandal in 2018, but actually they cover up somehow. Somebody else come to the power, and corruption is everywhere. So money pays everything, and this thing is still continue, unfortunately, till this day. Maybe it's not that high level, but all together in all this year, 86,000 kids they were trafficking out of Romania.
The person speaking is an anonymous woman from Romania who worked with Erika Kirk, talking about exactly what this organization was up to and how she was involved. And all told, over the many years that this was going on, as many as 86,000 children were trafficked. I can't even wrap my head around a number so obscene and so insane. You know, when Taken came out back in 2009, it was a very interesting time because my father was traveling internationally, and he actually was at the same hotel that Liam Neeson was staying at. And they ended up having a drink at the bar and a cigar, and he told me it was just a great experience. And this was shortly before he lost his wife, Natasha Richardson. And he remembered distinctly just talking to him about this and just say, he asked him, like, what are you here in Paris for? And he said, I'm filming this movie about child trafficking. I'm getting paid a decent amount to do it, etc. How the hell would he have known what the hell he was getting himself into in terms of a project? But the movie ended up becoming sort of a watershed moment in many ways. It gave a second life in terms of a career to Liam. He ended up making so many different movies that were very similar to Taken. But that movie struck a chord with a lot of people, because trafficking is real, not just in the States, but in Europe and a lot of other places in between. And it was as if a face had finally been put on something of this nature, of this magnitude. It was so surreal watching that unfold. And lo and behold, Liam Neeson could never have imagined at the time that he was creating a character that was going to have such a cultural impact for so many people. That's why they came back and made a handful of sequels as a result. But that story and that movie, if you haven't seen it, it's actually pretty hard to take, because there's some scenes in the movie when he helps free some of the trafficked women. It's very difficult to watch it. And this is a movie. This isn't even real. So imagine what goes on in the real world. And Erika Kirk was a big part of this. And the depths of what she has been involved in and what she is involved in cannot be denied. Like I said, what can you prove? We can prove that there is something very unholy about Erika Kirk. And whatever she's doing with Turning Point USA, like I said, it's not a question of if it's going to fall. It will. But how will it fall? And what will it be remembered for? In my opinion, it is becoming an Israel-first organization. They will fail as a result, but they're going to hurt a hell of a lot of people on the way down. So just be ready. To all of you that have been here this evening, we want to thank you all as always. And one more time, patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. Last count, we are at 101,702 subscribers. If you haven't subscribed as of yet, we certainly recommend that you do. So if you could be so kind, smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribed. Maybe share the stream. And obviously for those that have contributed, of which we have quite a few, we have to give a big shout out. You guys are amazing and you help us grow our channel, and it really means a lot. So where did we leave off? We left off at Bad Shah, Knight of Gotham. Thank you for the $2. Cast thy bread, Operation Encourage everyone to Google. Cast thy bread. All righty. Thank you very much, Bad Shah. Really appreciate it. Control your vessel. Thank you for the $10. Can't see Shapiro recovering from this. Tucker immediately took him down. Candace delivered the knockout last night. In probably her most powerful stream, she exposed Ben and Talmudic ideology. We'd be happy, like I said, especially with Jen when she's here on Monday, to talk about the Talmud and all the wonderful, horrible things in that book. Gazin82 with the $5. Ridiculous beef since Candace was Ben Shapiro's lapdog for years, working for him, but just found conscious. Doesn't absolve her, in my opinion. Hey, listen, you don't have to like her. You don't even have to trust her. But in the end, Candace is fighting on the side of the Palestinian cause. And you know what? That's more than enough for me. Splash Kenberger with the $5. Curse 1A all the way. Agreed. Free speech or no speech. Gazin82 with the 7-month membership. Congrats on 100K. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Gazin82 again with the $5. The demon of Iraq attacked Tucker one night. Guilt and night terror changed him. Tucker certainly has changed for the better. Hamburger 1975 with the $5. This civil war on the right is a clear indicator that Trump et al. Has no serious plans on trying to run again or trying to weasel in as VP. Listen, whatever's going to keep the ratings high, I have to have my post-presidency plans if I live long enough. So, that's the plan. So we'll see what happens there. Marvin Vargas with the $4.99. Please have Yana Benin on. Has book No Hide Laws for U.S. 7 laws, 100 sub-laws, Zion religious control. Rach, if you can take note of Yana Benin, please. Thank you very much, Marvin. And thank you, Rachel. Gezin82 with the $2. Erika won. Candace backed down after interview. Listen, did she back down? I can't say definitively if that's the case. She's given us a lot of clues to work with, and we have to use our platforms to continue to push it forward. Coffee Lover 5134 with the $5. Hope all is well. Hope you're doing well. Just don't drink coffee late at night. You'll never get to sleep. Carson Cruz with the $10. Captain of the USS Liberty awarded the Medal of Honor in secret a full year after the 1967 attack. Crew received commendation 24 years later. Protect the greatest ally. We're not protecting them. We're exposing them. Gezin82 with the $2. Good movie. Gangs of New York. Liam at his best. I have not seen Gangs of New York. It's probably the next one on the list that Jen is going to needle the shit out of me to go watch because I just finally got through the Hunger Games. And I'll conclude my thoughts on the Hunger Games after the Super Chats. Nosmata 3 with the €10. I took a break from BS Media for a while. I am stoked to see you guys at 100K plus. Keep boycotting Israel and everyone thing that are complicit in genocide. Thank you so very much for your support and for staying up late with us this evening. Carson Cruz with the $10. Merry Christmas, Peter. Merry Christmas to you too, Carson. Thank you very much. Texas Truth Teller with the $2.99 super sticker. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And finally, the A channel, 5243 with the $1.99. You and Jen do a heck of a job. We wouldn't be doing a heck of a job if we didn't have a heck of a support network like you guys. Thank you so very, very much for your amazing support. And for the last time, patreon.com/revolutionary change. Again, for as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. Jen had been encouraging me for a long time to watch the Hunger Games. And of course, when I found out that there were 4 movies, it's like, shit. I'm going to watch one, and if I like it, I'm going to watch another, and then I'm going to watch them all. So, as it turns out, I did finish all 4 movies over the course of 3 days, and I was able to fit it in at night, but was able to watch them. Here's my takeaway from the Hunger Games, especially The Mockingjay, which is the third and fourth film in the series. There is a distinct similarity in terms of what's happening here at home, as well as what's happening in Israel, as far as the story that takes place in the Hunger Games. The Mockingjay, as Jen likes to talk about. I would say, David, that the last movie was not a fitting finale. But then again, with stories like this, it's very hard to end them in a way that's satisfying to all parties. I would say that the second and third film were the two best, the ones that truly stood out in the series. But I do think that there is a healthy amount of crossover, particularly in the third film, when Jennifer Lawrence's character, Katniss Everdeen, was initially supposed to be doing propaganda videos, but ends up doing a clip talking about what the empire does. In this case, whether it's the U.S. empire or Israel, how they rain hell and destruction on all of us. And that it is the alliance, the rebel cause. And yes, they borrowed a handful of different talking points and scenarios from Star Wars, but in the end, the relevance of that story to what we're facing today cannot be understated, or overstated, I should say. It's obvious that what I was listening to was as relevant then as it is now. And we also have to think about the concluding message, which is, let's say we do storm the castle and we do bring about revolutionary change. What's going to be there in its place? What are we prepared to do? And who is going to lead? Because it's very plausible that those that will seek to lead will just attempt to do the same thing. History has shown time and again that even in a revolutionary moment, it can be a very unrevolutionary period that follows. In fact, you can revert back to what had happened prior to. So there's a lot to learn. I don't agree. I think rebels need leaders, not a leader. The distinction is very important. You can have leaders, but it's never one person's responsibility. Because if it becomes one person's responsibility, then you can eliminate that one person, and then that's all she wrote. When it's a plethora of different people leading the efforts, then anything is possible. So there is a lot to learn. And if you haven't seen it, I do recommend giving it a see. And let me just say, Philip Seymour Hoffman, there was nothing that man couldn't do. Everything he was in. I would watch anything he's ever done. That's how great of an actor he is, and he was. even in the Hunger Games, of which he played a small role, but a pivotal role. And I always suspected, Jen, that Julianne Moore was a baddie. I always kind of read that very, very quickly. And so in the end, our story, in some respects, can be found through the Mockingjay, because we are fighting for humanity. We're at a great crossroads right now. So just understand, whatever role Jen and I are playing in this moment, we're all capable of doing great things, all of us. So be prepared for many a fights ahead, because they're coming. Someone's going to see some of these clips that we dropped tonight, and that'll just be another person that'll want to take us down a peg. So with that said, smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. We love you all. We appreciate you all. We'll see you Monday, and free Palestine. Good night, guys.